Our marriage had always seemed steady, even predictable. We knew each other's routines, our favorite meals, the way we liked our coffee in the morning. Life was comfortable, and we were happy, or at least I thought we were. There were no major fights, no secrets, or so I believed. I trusted him completely, and I thought he trusted me in return. Until that one evening changed everything. It started like any other quiet night at home. We had finished dinner. The dishes pushed aside, and we were sitting on the couch, the TV playing low in the background. He had been unusually quiet that evening, scrolling absent-mindedly on his phone, and I could feel a tension I couldn't explain. I glanced at him, curiosity tugging at me. "Is something on your mind?" I asked lightly. He paused, his eyes flicking up to meet mine. There was a seriousness there that made my stomach tighten. "I need to tell you something," he said slowly, his voice steady, but filled with a weight I couldn't place. My heart began to race, a mixture of worry and anticipation. I nodded, trying to mask my unease. "Okay, what is it?" He swallowed and leaned back, taking a deep breath. "I've been thinking about something, a fantasy I have, something I've never told anyone before." My mind immediately started racing. What kind of fantasy? Dangerous? Embarrassing? Something that might change the way I saw him? I want to watch you with someone else," he finally confessed, each word landing like a shockwave. For a moment, the room went silent. I didn't speak. I couldn't. The words were so unexpected, so completely out of the world I thought I knew. My brain struggled to process them. Did I hear him right? Did he really just say that? I felt a flood of emotions at once. Confusion, disbelief, fear, and something else. A spark of curiosity, dangerous and electric, prickled at the edges of my consciousness. He watched me carefully, his eyes searching mine for a reaction. "I know it sounds strange," he added quickly, "and I don't want you to feel pressured. I just wanted to be honest with you. I trust you completely, and I hope you can trust me with this." I took a deep breath, my mind spinning. Part of me wanted to laugh at the absurdity. Another part wanted to shut him down immediately and insist this was never going to happen. Yet, there was a small, undeniable part of me that wondered what it would be like. What it might feel like to give in to curiosity. To see the world of our relationship through a lens we had never explored. I don't know what to say," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. I was scared of my own thoughts, scared of what acknowledging them might mean. "I'm not asking for an answer tonight," he said gently, reaching out to take my hand. "I just needed you to know. I don't want secrets between us. I wanted to be honest." That honesty struck me in a way I didn't expect. It wasn't the fantasy itself that shocked me the most. It was the vulnerability, the trust he showed in telling me. And that made me pause. I realized, for the first time in a long while, that there were parts of desire, curiosity, and intimacy we hadn't shared. That maybe, in some ways, our marriage had grown comfortable but predictable. That honesty, like this, could be terrifying and thrilling. I squeezed his hand, my thoughts a whirlwind of fear and intrigue. "I need time," I said. "I don't know if I can, but I need to think about it." He nodded, his expression softening. "Take all the time you need. We'll talk when you're ready." That night, I lay awake, replaying his words over and over. I couldn't stop thinking about what it meant, what it might feel like, and what it said about us. Not just about desire, but about trust, openness, and the unknown parts of ourselves waiting to be discovered. One confession had shifted everything, and I knew, deep down, that our lives and our marriage would never be quite the same again. The morning after his confession, I woke up with a restless mind. The words he had spoken, the ones that had left me stunned and breathless, kept replaying in my head. He wants to watch me with someone else. The idea was strange, unsettling, yet part of me couldn't deny the flicker of curiosity that had ignited. I had never imagined our marriage would venture into such territory. But the honesty in his voice had opened a door I wasn't sure I wanted to close. Over breakfast, we spoke cautiously, circling the subject like wary dancers. I could see he was nervous too, afraid of my reaction, but determined to explore what he had admitted. "We don't have to do anything," he said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. "I just thought we could talk about it. Figure out what it would even mean." We did just that. Words tumbled out awkwardly at first. We laughed nervously, embarrassed by our own thoughts. But gradually, the conversation became serious, focused, and oddly freeing. We began to establish boundaries. Nothing would happen without consent. Nothing would cross a line we weren't comfortable with. And communication had to be absolute. The fantasy wasn't about lust alone. It was about trust, about exploring desires together while keeping our connection safe. The next step was the most difficult, choosing someone. It had to be someone we both felt comfortable with. Someone whose presence wouldn't threaten the foundation of our marriage. We debated options quietly, weighing friends, acquaintances, and even strangers. It felt strange to evaluate people not as companions or friends, but as participants in a delicate, emotionally charged experiment. Anxiety mixed with anticipation in ways I hadn't expected. Finally, we agreed to start small, with someone neutral, someone we could feel safe around. This decision eased the tension slightly, though not entirely. I found myself questioning my own feelings. Could I really go through with this? Was I seeking thrill, curiosity, revenge, or freedom? My mind was a storm of conflicting emotions, each one more confusing than the last. The night before meeting our chosen companion, the anticipation was almost unbearable. I caught my reflection in the mirror and hardly recognized the person staring back. There was nervous excitement in my eyes, a blush creeping over my cheeks that had nothing to do with vanity. I felt exposed, even in the safety of our bedroom, knowing that the next day could challenge the boundaries I had always relied on. When the evening finally arrived, the tension was tangible. My husband was quiet at first, watching me as if measuring every step, every glance. There was no judgment, only curiosity and a strange mixture of pride and longing. The room felt electric, charged with expectation. Every touch, every look, every word seemed to carry weight far greater than the situation warranted. And yet, we both knew the stakes were personal. As we waited for our companion to arrive, we talked again, reviewing boundaries, discussing signals, reassuring each other. Each word was deliberate, each gesture a reminder of the trust we shared. I realized then that this wasn't just about fulfilling a fantasy. It was about vulnerability, honesty, and the courage to explore the edges of desire together. By the time the doorbell rang, my pulse was racing. The first step had been taken, the planning complete, the rules laid out. Now, the real test of boundaries and of our marriage was about to begin. There was excitement, yes, but also a quiet fear. We were standing on the edge of something unknown, and there was no turning back. The night had begun, and with it the slow, careful unraveling of the ordinary, the familiar, and the safe. What came next would test everything we thought we knew about each other and ourselves. A period. The doorbell rang, echoing through the apartment like a herald of something entirely new. My heart raced in anticipation, a mixture of nervousness, curiosity, and an unexplainable thrill. My husband and I exchanged a glance, a silent acknowledgement of what we were about to do. Everything had led to this moment, the conversations, the planning, the boundaries carefully laid out. But standing here now, reality felt far more intense than I had imagined. When we opened the door, the person we had chosen to join us stepped inside. They were friendly, approachable, and completely unaware of the intricate tension that hung in the air. I felt an instant wave of relief. They were someone neutral, someone who wouldn't disrupt the fragile balance between my husband and me. Yet beneath that relief was a simmering anxiety, a nervous awareness of what was about to unfold. We invited them in, offering a drink, small talk filling the room as we tried to ease the tension. Every movement, every glance, was heightened in my awareness. I noticed how my husband's eyes lingered on me, the subtle way he positioned himself to watch my reactions. His desire to observe was clear, but there was a tenderness in it too, a trust, a vulnerability that mirrored my own. As the evening progressed, conversation flowed naturally, but the tension never fully dissipated. I could feel the boundaries we had set being tested, stretched by the excitement and the novelty of the situation. Small gestures, a touch on the arm, a shared laugh, a fleeting glance, carried weight far beyond their usual significance. My husband watched quietly, a mixture of fascination and restraint in his expression. Eventually, the atmosphere shifted. The playful, casual energy of the evening began to give way to something more intimate, more charged. My companion and I moved closer together in conversation, their attention fully on me, and I felt my own heart race. Every word, every movement was magnified by the awareness of my husband's gaze. It was surreal, exhilarating, and oddly comforting all at once. My husband's presence was a constant reminder of the trust that underpinned this experience. He wasn't there to participate in the obvious sense. He was there to witness, to share in the emotional intensity without crossing the line. His eyes followed my every expression, his subtle reactions a mirror of the emotions that churned within me. There was no judgment, only a profound connection that seemed to grow stronger with every passing moment. I could feel my own boundaries shifting, the careful rules we had set becoming less rigid as the night unfolded. It wasn't reckless, it was exploratory. Each gesture, each glance, each carefully measured touch was a test of comfort, of desire, of the trust that had always been the foundation of our marriage. And yet, there was a thrill in the vulnerability, a dangerous excitement in giving myself to the experience while knowing my husband was watching. Time seemed to stretch and contract, the evening unfolding in slow, deliberate moments. The air was thick with anticipation, tension, and the unspoken understanding that we were navigating uncharted territory together. I was aware of every heartbeat, every breath, every subtle shift in energy between us. It was overwhelming at times, but it was also electrifying, a revelation of desires we had long suppressed. By the end of the night, the experience had transformed something fundamental within me. The thrill, the vulnerability, and the emotional intensity had brought my husband and me closer, even as the boundaries of our comfort zone had expanded. It wasn't just about desire. It was about honesty, trust, and the courage to explore the unknown together. When the evening finally ended and our companion left, the apartment felt both quieter and heavier. The intensity of what had occurred lingered in the air, a mix of excitement, reflection, and unspoken understanding. My husband and I sat together, hands intertwined, processing the whirlwind of emotions. We had crossed a threshold that we could never unsee, never undo. And yet, amidst the uncertainty and the lingering thrill, there was a profound sense of connection, a reaffirmation of trust, and the knowledge that our marriage had changed, in ways neither of us could have predicted. The night had begun as a fantasy, but it ended as a revelation. It revealed desires, trust, and emotions we hadn't fully acknowledged, and in doing so, it reshaped the boundaries of our relationship forever. The morning after that night, the apartment felt heavier, as if the events of the previous evening had left an invisible weight hanging in the air. I woke early, heart still pounding from memories that refused to fade. My husband was already awake, sitting quietly at the kitchen table, a mug of coffee in his hands. His gaze distant. For a moment, I hesitated, unsure of how to break the silence. How do you talk about something that has changed everything in ways you can't yet define? We eventually sat together, facing one another across the table. The initial excitement from the night before had faded, replaced by a complex mix of emotions: guilt, curiosity, tension, and a deep sense of vulnerability. I didn't expect it to feel like this, I admitted softly. My voice trembled slightly, betraying the whirlwind of thoughts I had kept bottled up overnight. "I know," he said, his tone gentle. "Me neither. I thought it would be about the fantasy, about the act itself. But it's more than that. It's emotional, too." We reflected on what had occurred, dissecting moments that seemed trivial at the time, but had left lasting impressions. A glance exchanged, a touch that lingered, the way my companion looked at me, all of it carried a weight neither of us had anticipated. It wasn't just desire. It was self-awareness, vulnerability, and a newfound understanding of our own emotions. Guilt was the first emotion to surface. I felt guilty for enjoying parts of the experience, guilty for the thrill that had coursed through me, even as I watched my husband's reactions. He felt it too, I realized, though he carried it differently, an undercurrent of worry that the experiment might have harmed us rather than strengthened our bond. But alongside the guilt was an undeniable sense of clarity. We saw each other in a new light, understood parts of ourselves we had ignored, and confronted desires and emotions that had been quietly simmering beneath the surface. It was uncomfortable, yes, but it was also illuminating. We spent the day in quiet conversation, revisiting boundaries, discussing feelings, and processing the unexpected intensity of the night. What began as a simple fantasy had become a mirror, reflecting truths about our marriage, our intimacy, and our trust. By evening, there was a tentative sense of resolution. We didn't have all the answers, and we didn't yet know what this experience would mean for the future. But we had faced it together, honestly and openly, and that honesty, more than anything else, had changed us. It was no longer just about fantasy. It was about understanding, connection, and the courage to confront what we hadn't dared to feel before. In the days and weeks following that night, the impact of what had happened settled into our daily lives in subtle but profound ways. Our marriage, once predictable and comfortable, now felt layered with a complexity that neither of us had anticipated. The fantasy had been fulfilled. Yes, but what lingered afterward was something far more meaningful: self-awareness, trust, and a renewed sense of intimacy. We began to talk more openly than we ever had before. Conversations that once felt routine became opportunities to explore our thoughts and desires, to articulate feelings we had previously kept hidden. I found myself sharing more honestly about what excited me, what scared me, and even what I didn't understand about myself. My husband listened, fully present, without judgment. For the first time in years, it felt like we were truly seeing each other, not just the roles we had settled into, but the real, vulnerable people beneath. Pause. The experience also revealed the importance of boundaries and the delicate balance between curiosity and respect. We understood that this was not something to repeat recklessly. not a simple thrill to indulge casually. It was a lesson in communication, trust, and the courage to explore together, rather than alone. The night had shown us what could happen when honesty and desire intersected. And we knew that navigating that terrain required care, attention, and mutual respect. Pause. There was also an unexpected closeness that grew from witnessing and being witnessed. Knowing that my husband had watched, and that I had experienced the situation with transparency and trust, created a bond that was difficult to articulate, but impossible to ignore. It was not about the act itself, but about shared vulnerability. A deepening of intimacy that went beyond physical connection. Reflecting on it now, I realized the true surprise of that night was not in fulfilling a fantasy, but in what it revealed about us. It had uncovered hidden desires, challenged fears, and reaffirmed the strength of our relationship. The trust we shared had been tested and proven resilient. And while we didn't have all the answers, we had gained something far more valuable: understanding of ourselves, of each other, and of the depths our connection could reach. The fantasy had been the catalyst, but the real transformation was emotional. It taught us that love and trust are not static. They grow, evolve, and sometimes require daring honesty. And in embracing that honesty, we discovered a version of our marriage we had never known, one that was more open, more intimate, and more alive than ever before.